Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2026 Houston Open Data Dive Show. Per usual, on a Monday night, we're going to take our first look at the forecast for Houston and Memorial Park, figure out if we think a wave advantage is developing. We're going to take a deep statistical dive into Memorial Park, see what types of players, shot types, and all of that generally performs well around here, figure out which players in the field this week have been the best at those shot types and who has played well around Memorial Park in years past. And then at the end of the show, we'll take a look at a little bit of some prior tournament history. Not a whole lot that I'm comfortable going back to, and I'll explain as we go throughout the show. So we have a lot to get into. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and moving forward are from both Fantasy National and the Rabbit Hole at BetSperts. The Rabbit Hole is acquiring or merging Fantasy National, so I'm slowly in the process of migrating my data over to the Rabbit Hole. It's a slow process, tedious, but going to be well worth it in the end. Make sure you go check out the Rabbit Hole. It has everything you need to make the correct wagers, optimize your lineups, has a tournament simulator, lineup optimizer, everything you need week in and week out for the PGA Tour. Go check out the Rabbit Hole. You won't regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I put research out on Mondays regarding some tournament history, patterns of previous winners. Didn't do anything for Houston this week, as I alluded to, not very comfortable going very far back with Memorial Park. Really only going back to 2024 and 2025 for me. And I'll explain why as we go throughout the show. But normally, if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play that comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see the players I've wagered with my own money, the players I'm using most often in my lineups, give me a follow over at X. And then lastly, for social media, Gabe's handles in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Highly recommend it. It's a great way to start your week of preparation. Continues to update you throughout the week with his own version of course history, recent form, and on Wednesdays he provides his deluxe version, which has projected ownerships, his top plays, and top values. So you really are missing out. Make sure you're subscribed to his article and go show him some support. Follow him over on social media. Lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. How is your March Madness brackets going? Is your team still alive? And then for the Houston Open, what do you think of the course? Who's your winner early this week? Who are you targeting? What types of players are you looking at rostering or maybe wagering? So anything and everything Houston Open, put your thoughts and opinions in chat. If you're not able to catch the show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2026 Houston Open. We're going to start, as we always do, if I can get my chair to swivel, over at the extended forecast, over at Windfinder. Let me center this camera. It always seems to get off-centered. But the forecast for Houston looks pretty solid, quite warm, highs in the mid-80s. Early on in the tournament. Does look like it'll cool off for the weekend. Very little wind, at least I would think by Texas standards. Maybe a little bit of gusty wind on Friday morning. Maybe it starts on Thursday. We're a little bit too far out in terms of the super forecast to get a great feel or a great idea. But we'll have to keep this in mind, and we'll certainly update this at the beginning of the show Wednesday to see if a wave advantage has developed. But overall, not a whole lot here that I see in terms of forecast, especially no precipitation. So the course should be really fast, really firm, the way Memorial Park generally likes it to play. Thought I cleaned off my glasses. Obviously I didn't. But that's the way the tournament organizers generally like it, is to have Memorial Park play pretty darn fast, pretty darn firm. You see maybe some gusty winds on Friday morning, maybe into the 20s or low 20s, but overall not a whole lot here that I see. So with that, we will first go to Fantasy National. And this was not loaded in last night when we did the initial research. So I want to cover this very, very quickly. I am only focused on these 2 years, 2025 and 2024. Reason being, the Houston Open was played in the fall in its first 3 iterations at Memorial Park. It was played in the fall portion of the schedule. The Bermuda was alive and not dormant, so played quite a bit differently than what we'll see this week. So again, I am focused on just these 2 years. That said, I have no way to kind of sort just on these 2 years. So we're going to look at strokes gained total. Your strokes gained total leader, technically going back the past 5 years, and I would imagine for the past 2 years, is Scotty. 3 runner-up finishes around Memorial Park and another top 10. Tony Finau has a win 3 years ago in the fall, or 3.5 years ago technically. Has another runner-up in 2024, and then middling last year, but he has played pretty darn well around Memorial Park. Mackenzie Hughes has been solid around Memorial Park. You think of Scotty Scheffler and elite ball striking, and Tony Finau with his distance, although he's lost some recently, but distance and good ball striking. Jaeger hits it quite a bit off the tee. Gary Woodland the same. Wyndham Clark hits it well off the tee. Aaron Rai is more of your elite iron player. So Mackenzie Hughes seems to be a little bit of an outlier here, but he is elite with his short game. So there is more than one way to get it done around Memorial Park. Although Mackenzie Hughes hasn't won, he has played very, very well around here with 2 top 10s, another top 15, another top 20. So he's played very well. Stefan Jaeger, your first winner at Memorial Park at its current spot in the schedule in 2024, and also top 15 last year. Gary Woodland has played well around here. Wyndham Clark. Aaron Rai did miss the cut last year, but has 3 top 20s and 2 of those being top 10s. Alejandro Tosti has been exceptional here the past 2 years with a T2 and a T5. Your defending champion is Min Woo Lee. He's only played here once, but is the defending champion. Some other notables that might be or that are on the good side or have played well around Memorial Park. Sam Burns, it's quite historical. He has not played Memorial Park since it's been in the spring, so he's actually not going to have any data come Wednesday night in my course history. Again, I'm only looking at these past 2 years, but when it was played in the fall, he did play well here. Davis Riley has been pretty good here. Ben Griffin, 3 for 3. Harry Hall, 3 for 3. Interesting to note that Alex Smalley is somewhat high in terms of strokes gained total, but he's 0 for 2 when the tournament has moved to the spring. He did all of his damage or played well when it was in the fall, so be mindful of that. Davis Thompson has been okay around here. Billy Horschel, 1 for 1. So there's a look at some of the players who have played well around Memorial Park, and then others who have not played well around Memorial Park. Bo Hostler, 1 for 4. Rafael Campos is 0 for 2. Let's see. David Lipsky, coming off of his really, really solid Valspar. He's 0 for 2 around here. Matt Wallace, 0 for 3. Technically, Lipsky's 1 for 4. I'm just focused on these 2 years here. Matt Wallace, 0 for 3. Thorbjorn Olesen, 0 for 2. Adams Vincent has made the cut both times the past 2 years, but leaving a lot to be desired in terms of strong finishes. Patrick Fishburne, 0 for 2. Patrick Rogers is 3 for 4, but leaving a lot to be desired. Pearson Cootie, 2 for 2, but again, leaving a lot to be desired. So there's a look at the players who have and have not played well around Memorial Park the past 2 and plus years or so. All right, with that, we will now go over to the rabbit hole and take a look at a few things here. I will take a look at some wind performance just in case some more creeps up in the forecast between now and the start of the tournament. So in moderate and windy conditions going back to the beginning of 2025. Your top performers in moderate and windy conditions: Scotty Scheffler, Harry Hall, Chris Goddard, Shane Lowry, Ryan Gerard, Harris English, Alex Smalley, Nikolai Højgaard, Ben Griffin, and Ryan Fox are your top 10 in terms of moderate and windy performance. Again, the forecast didn't suggest or lead us to think we needed to look at some wind performance, but forecast can change, obviously. So just in case some more wind picks up, there's a look at that. And then the only other thing we might want to take a look at in terms of maybe review from last night and an overview, big picture view. Let's take a look at long and very long courses. As a par 70, this is 7,500 yards, one of the longest courses that we will see on the PGA Tour this year, at least by par. Obviously, like places like Torrey Pines is going to be, the longest in terms of raw yardage. But again, as a par 70, being close to 7,500 yards, this is a long golf course. So your top performers on long and very long golf courses in the field this week: Scotty, Harris English, Kurt Kitayama, Harry Hall, Pearson Coody, Sam Burns, Kevin Roy, Vince Whaley, Ben Griffin, and Jake Knapp. Think that's pretty well it in terms of some high level overview type stuff. If you wanted to look at Tom Doak designs, you could maybe argue to look at that, but there's very, very few rounds here in the field this week. It is all from the Renaissance Club and then last year's Texas Children's Houston Open. So not a big fan of that filter. So with that, why don't we take a look at some things that we couldn't last night in terms of the Houston Open. We took a look at, some course facts and the scorecard. But what we didn't have available to us was in relation to the tour average. So we'll look at this a couple different ways. We'll look at it here in the rabbit hole, and then we'll look at it from Microsoft Excel in my file and see where there are agreements and maybe where there's some differences. So looking at Memorial Park here in the rabbit hole, off the tee, actually slightly easier than average, 9% there, but distance is a whole lot higher. You're almost getting 300-yard average drives here. Driver usage is much higher. 320-plus yard drives is much higher. Now, accuracy is much lower, just due to the fact that players are freewheeling driver. The rough is very short here, so they're not afraid to be in the rough. There's not a whole lot of trouble off the tee. The fairways are pretty wide, and whatever tree-lined fairways there are, the trees are pushed pretty far back from the fairway, so there's a lot of forgiveness here around Memorial Park. It is really a lot about distance. You just have to have a decent amount of distance to keep up with a lot of the scoring pace here. The exception, of course, being Mackenzie Hughes, but he has an all-world short game, so he kind of makes up for it in a different way. Rough penalty, much easier here. Missed fairway penalty, much easier here. So we're looking at simply distance this week. The Bombers, who can hit it the furthest, that gives themselves the shortest clubs into these somewhat tricky greens. So yeah, that's how we're going to be looking at off the tee this week. Not doing a whole lot, or if anything, with accuracy, as it doesn't tend to matter here. Approach, a little bit easier here, which is a little surprising, despite the fact that this is a long course and you have a lot of long irons in. It is pretty easy to gain strokes on approach here, both inside and outside 150 yards, but especially outside 150 yards. So if a player is very, very good with their long irons, see Aaron Rai, see typically Tony Finau, or especially Tony Finau when he won here. Scotty is always known to be very, very good with his irons, and particularly long irons. So it's very easy to gain strokes on approach here, especially if guys are very good with their long irons. Hitting greens slightly less than the tour average, but hitting greens from the rough is much higher. Again, emphasizing that it's not the end of the world to be in the rough here. A different story than what we've seen the past couple of weeks, especially at the Players, a little bit less so at the Valspar. Average approach distance, you can see almost 8 it's a little bit more than 7 yards further. 175 is the average distance here, or 174.5. Some other approach metrics here. Proximity, a little bit further away. Fairway proximity is quite a bit further away. But it's easier to make birdies from the rough. Going for the green, players are a little bit more aggressive here. Kind of have to be. Around the green, easier. A little bit surprising considering how difficult a lot of the talk was when this course was seen in the fall about the difficulty chipping around here. But in the past couple of years, it seems like it is quite a different story. Around the green, 33% easier here. Scrambling is easier here. And then short grass, you see the plethora of chip shots and pitches around the green from short grass. Almost 2/3 of your around the green shots are from short grass. So we're definitely going to take a look at some short grass chipping metrics this week and tonight. It's a little bit more difficult from the rough is a lot less happening, but it's not necessarily more difficult. You can see that there. So I was misspeaking there. Easier from the bunker, but there's not a whole lot of shots from the sand. So we're just basically looking at around the green, short grass type stuff, kind of like what we were doing for the Players. Putting, however, is technically listed as average in terms of difficulty, but yet all of it is red. So putting is the most difficult portion of Memorial Park, maybe the most important other than off the tee. Putting per shot, 15% less or 16% less. Inside 15 feet is very difficult, but outside 15 feet is right at tour average. So quite interesting. 3-putt percentage a little bit higher. A little bit more putts per green in regulation. Very difficult close range surfaces. These are fast. There are subtle undulations. So we might take a look at some close putting, see who has been good and who has not been good. From maybe 0 to 10 feet, especially the 4 to 8, 3 to 5. You see that there. And then scoring, bogey percentage a little bit less here, or it's a little bit easier, but there's a little bit less birdies too. So it'll be interesting what Excel says. And then what I was most interested in, you can see this here, where these approach ranges come from. Majority of them are 200 plus. 31.5% 200 plus. So we're going to take a look at some long iron proficiency this week, which is what I was thinking we were going to need to do. There are your fair share of 100 to 150 thanks to, I wanted to go up here, sorry. Thanks to a couple of these shorter par 4s, 382 here, 406, even 440. 440 and 443 might lend itself to a shorter approach shot, but majority of them, gosh dang it, I keep doing that. Majority of your approach shots are from 200 plus, so that's where we're going to be focused on. So that's how the rabbit hole sees Memorial Park in terms of some deep statistical dive data. Let's take a look at what Microsoft Excel has to say. Now I only look at the top 30, and I only look against full field course averages. So like the Masters is not a full field. Harbor Town being a signature event, I don't compare it to that. But against full field course averages, you can see off the tee has dominated in the past 2 years. And again, I'm only going back the past 2 years for Houston since this has been played in the spring. So 24% more important. What I was afraid of, the irons haven't been the biggest deal. I'm a little skeptical of this around the green number. You had a pretty large outlier here, I think. Putting has been pretty consistent, and it's been, right at tour average, maybe a little bit more. But the overwhelming takeaways, off the tee, huge importance this week. Distance, huge importance this week. You see fairways negative against the full field course average, not a big deal. Good drives gained, sure. I think this is more in the greens as opposed to the fairways. So we're not going to overlook around the green by any means. This is a very large number, although I think this is a tad misleading. I am much more focused on off the tee players this week. Mostly distance, as you see. Be interesting to look at some good drives gained, but I think we can look at that in terms of 200 plus. Really, maybe look at some 100 to 150 as well, but 200 plus being the majority of what we want to look at in terms of proximity. Look at scoring. Birdies right at full field average. Bogeys a little bit less. The higher raw number is generally in the birdies gained, and the more consistent number is generally the bogey avoidance. That's exactly what is happening here. So interesting. I'm probably going to be looking at birdies gained just because we've seen the course get a little bit easier over the past couple of years, especially last year with Minwoo Lee winning at, 20 under? I know the vision skewed, but yeah, 20 under. Jaeger was 12. Finau did get to 16, but that was in the fall. So I'm thinking we're going to be trending more closely to the 20 under, especially without a whole lot of the wind that is lacking in the forecast. So I'm thinking probably birdies gained. Looking at par threes, we're gonna be doing plenty of that. This is a par 70. There are still 5 par threes around Memorial Park. So, and there's a good mix of them. If we take a look at where the strokes gained come in the par threes, a lot of it is in the shorter par threes, was a little bit surprising. But we're going to be looking at all par threes. You can see they play all different lengths here at Memorial Park. So we're just going to be looking at par 3 performance. And it's going to be a decent size factor, I think, considering there are 5 par 3s. Because of that, the par 4s are mitigated, just like they were last week at the Valspar. Valspar has 5 par 3s. So par 4s mitigated again. Probably taking a look at the longer par 4s would be my guess. But there's, all of it basically is in the 400 to 500 between the two. So, interesting. I don't know if we're going to look at much into the par 4s. Good evening, Echoes. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Time to make some money this week. We're going to try. It's been a pretty piss poor 2 weeks for yours truly, if we're just being transparent and honest here. I have not had a good 2 weeks. So I'm going to try and turn it around this week. Hopefully, in time for the Masters. Feel like I have a decent hold on Houston, but we'll see. Thanks for jumping in chat, Echoes. Very, very much appreciated. Hopefully you've had a good start to your week and are getting prepared for the Houston Open. And then looking at par 5s, all of it is in the 550 to 600. So we might just focus on that range. If we look at procs, 200 plus looks like it's a big negative factor, but I don't know. That just seems like an odd set of data. This is clearly an outlier. So I still think we're on point to look at, say, 100 to 150 and the 200 plus. So there's a look at Memorial Park in how Excel looks at the data, comparing it to the average full field course. So now we'll go back to the rabbit hole and figure out the players in the field this week who have been playing or doing the best in these various metrics that we think we're going to focus on come Wednesday night. We're going to start with off the tee. Absolutely. We're going to look at this in a couple of different ways. But first thing we're going to do, let's just take a look at who has been the best off the tee players early on in 2026. Just no filters, not a big time frame, just who's been doing well off the tee so far early in 2026. Your top 10 in the field this week for Houston in off the tee, Marco Pinge. And you'll note that the Valspar is in this week, or tonight, I should say. So Pinge played very well at the Valspar. Minwoo Lee, Gary Woodland, Keith Mitchell, Michael Brennan, Scotty Scheffler, Harris English, Johnny Kiefer, Sam Stevens, Jimmy Stanger, and Jordan L. Smith. Your top 11 just due to ties here. There's kind of the first way we're going to look at it. The other way that I'm going to look at it, especially come Wednesday night with this 2026 time frame, who's just got the most driving distance. And I explained this last night, but I'll do it again tonight. I'm not looking for carry distance. This is going to be fast. It's going to be firm. Players like Chris Gotterup, who are like third in total driving distance, but he's only 30th in carry distance because he hits these low stingers and low bullets. That's going to play pretty well around Houston, I think, this week. So I just want to see total driving distance because I think you're going to get a lot of rollout, and players who can or who are skilled at that ability are still going to play or be pretty well off the tee, I think. So your top driving distance players in 2026, Christo Lamprecht, Michael Brennan, Chris Gotterup, Keith Mitchell, Johnny Kiefer, Aldrich Potgeider, Rasmus Højgaard, Marco Pinge, Gary Woodland, and Pearson Coody. Again, off the tee favors distance typically, so that's why you have a lot of overlap here, like Michael Brennan, Keith Mitchell 4th in both, Johnny Kiefer top 10 in both, Marco Pinge and Gary Woodland. So off the tee generally favors distance, but we're going to be focused on distance this week for sure. We can take a look at off the tee in a couple of different ways too. Let's take a look at off the tee on driver-heavy courses. No doubt about it. Memorial Park forces driver in your hands more or most of the time, if not all the time. Depends on how aggressive a player wants to be. So, on driver-heavy courses, your top off-the-tee players in the field this week, Pearson Coody, Michael Thorbjornsen, Jesper Svensson, Kevin Yu, Scotty Scheffler, Marco Pinge, Taylor Pendrith, Aldrich Potgeider, Rico Hoey, and Michael Brennan. Anything else that we want to look at? Let's do missed fairway penalty is low. Because there's not a whole lot of penalty for missing the fairway here. You see that here, like 44% missed fairway. Like the rough penalty is not anything. We could look at short rough maybe. Top off the tee players when it's not penalizing to miss the fairway. Jesper Svensson, Kurt Kitayama, Alejandro Tosti, who's been very good here. Scotty Scheffler, Aldrich Potgeider, Nikolai Højgaard, Marco Pinge, Alex Smalley, Taylor Pendrith, and Chris Gotterup. Let's see. Anything else that really strikes a fancy to me? Rough penalty low. Rough length short. Let's go rough penalty low, I suppose. Kurt Kitayama, Aldrich Potgeider, Jesper Svensson, Pearson Coody, Taylor Pendrith, Keith Mitchell, Scotty Scheffler, Michael Brennan, Kevin Yu, and Marco Pinge. So, interesting. Few different ways we could look at off the tee. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to look at off the tee for this year. I'm going to look at driving distance this year. Might look at off the tee with a filter on. Kind of have to see how I feel when I make the mixed condition model. Something else we're not going to ignore. Oh boy, is Rabbit Hole having a little bit of trouble here seemingly? Yep, that's what I thought. Okay, let's bring this back. Let's go approach. Even though it's a little bit mitigated here in terms of importance, we're not going to ignore it. So let's take a look at your top approach players in the field this week. Brooks, Ryan Gerard, Kurt Kitayama, Adam Scott, Austin Eckroat, Chris Kirk, Zhe or Marty Doe, Nikolai Højgaard, David Ford, and Sam Ryder. Do note that Sam Ryder, he does not have a price here. He is in the field. He was an open qualifier. So Sam Ryder and Andrew Putnam are your two open qualifiers for the Houston Open this week. Just to give you that, or pass along that information to you as the viewer. So we won't ignore approach, even though it is a little bit mitigated. Don't know if I'm going to look at the greens. I mean, hitting greens here slightly less than tour average. A little bit harder to hit the fairways, hit the greens from fairways against the tour average, but easier to hit them from the rough. I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling on anything other than approach in this page view. So let's go to overall proximities. And we're going to look at two different things. We're going to look at 100 to 150. 25% of the approach shots still come to this from this range. And we're going to have a heavy emphasis on 200 plus. So your top proximity players in the field this week from 100 to 150 yards. K.H. Lee, it's only two rounds from the Sony. No, from the Cognizant. Okay. So he missed the cut at the Cognizant, but he was pretty good from this range here. So be mindful. Very small sample size. Chris Kirk, Ryan Gerard, Will Zalatoris, Mac Meisner, Danny Willett, Denny McCarthy, Tom Hoagie, Ricky Fowler, and Alejandro Tosti. Austin Eckroat and Jackson Suber. I thought Andrew Putnam was the second open or Monday qualifier. It is Jackson Suber. So Andrew Putnam must have gotten in as an alternate in a different way. So my apologies. Let me rephrase this. There were two Monday qualifiers in the field this week. They are Sam Ryder and Jackson Suber. So my apologies for misspeaking there. There's your top 100 to 150 approach players in 2026. Early in 2026. We're also going to look at 200 plus. Chandler Blanchett, Michael Brennan, Rasmus Nergard Peterson, Jake Knapp, Brooks Koepka, Sung Jae, Sudarshan, Yellow Miraju, Ryan Fox, Shane Lowry, and Hao Tong Lee. Interesting to note that it's really kind of Chandler Blanchett, Sudarshan, Shane Lowry. These are the only guys that are popping in both the 100 to 150 and the 200 plus. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, like Adam Scott's top 20 in both, Tom Hoagie's top 15 in both, Danny Willett, top 25 in both. But it's just interesting to see that not a whole lot of players are doing well in both of those two categories. See, Minwoo Lee's okay in both, defending champion. Scroll down to him just because I saw him out of the corner of my eye. So that's where we're going to focus on our proximities. We'll have probably a little bit in the 100 to 150, majority in the 200 plus. Definitely not going to skip around the green. We're going to look at around the green. When scrambling short grass, easy. Gaining around the green is average here. Like, it says scrambling from short grass is just a little bit higher than the tour average, or at least around the green. Strokes gained around the green is just a little bit higher than the tour average, but scrambling is much easier. So I don't know. I just kind of want to look at scrambling or around the green from short grass. I guess we'll have to do scrambling short grass, I guess. I don't know if I love that, because it's a lot easier. Around the green on short grass. Around the green procs short grass. A couple different ways we can look at this. Your top around the green players from short grass. Sudarshan, Sung Jae, Alejandro Tosti, Jimmy Stanger, Aaron Wise, Ryan Fox, Brooks Koepka, Will Zalatoris, Tony Finau, and Matty Schmid. Oh, that's in the last 6 months. I'm sorry. Let's pull this in. Just to 2026. My apologies. Let's do that. Yeah, there we go. Patrick Fishburne, Sudarshan, Sung Jae, Alejandro Tosi, Jimmy Stanger, Ryan Fox, Adams Vinson, Brooks Koepka, Will Zalatoris, and Tony Finau. Did I not have the correct filter for overall proximities? KH Lee, Gerard Zalatoris. I did. Okay. Very good. The reason why I'm not keen on scrambling in short grass, because that includes some putting. And we're going to look at putting. Well, I don't know. Putting is still a pretty big deal around here. Your top scramblers from short grass: Nikolai Højgaard, Jason Day, Haotong Lee, Ryan Fox, Chris Gotterup. Don't know why he's at 0. I don't know if he's withdrawn or not. Chris Ventura, Zay Ching or Marty Doe, Zach Bauschow, Kurt Kitayama, and Patrick Rogers. Definitely not going to ignore putting. First way we'll look at it is take a look at any Poa Trivialis specialists that we have. Memorial Park, Pete Dye Stadium course, Quail, and the TPCs. San Antonio, Sawgrass, Scottsdale. We'll apply those. Your top putters on Poa Trivialis: Sam Ryder, Denny McCarthy, Sam Burns, Christian Bezadenhout, Ben Griffin, Chad Ramey, Billy Horschel, Adam Scott, Harris English, and Nico Echeverria. But as we saw over on the course facts page, putting, especially inside 15 feet and really inside 10 feet, is very difficult here. So let's take a look at who have been some of the best putters inside 10 feet. We need putting ranges. There we go. Inside 10 feet this calendar year, your top putters inside 10 feet have been Nick Dunlap, Jimmy Stanger, Rafael Campos, Kinsei Harada, Ricky Fowler, Nikolai Højgaard, Sam Ryder, David Lipsky, Carl Phillips, Patton Kazire, Lee Hodges, Vince Whaley, Matt Wallace, Sudarshan, Patrick Fishburne, Ventura, Sadier, Smalley, Pavone, Roy. Those are your top 20. The worst inside 10 feet: Kevin Yu, Aldrich Potgeider, Marcelo Rozo, Lucas Glover, Austin Eckroat, Adams Vinson. Interesting to see Joe Highsmith. He's actually been acceptable from 3 to 5 feet, but 4 to 8 and 5 to 10 he's been pretty bad. Michael Brennan, a little bit the same. Aaron Wise, Jeffrey Kang, Taylor Pendrith, Wyndham Clark, Charlie Hoffman, Chris Kirk. Excellent from 3 to 5 feet, but getting from 4 to 10 feet seems like it's been a struggle for him. Luke Clanton, Johnny Kiefer's been bad with the putter inside 10 feet. Adam Shank, Jesper Svensson, Alejandro Tosti, Bo Hostler. So there's been the players who have not putt well inside 10 feet. We'll do some scoring. Let's take a look at some scoring here. I'll expand the time frame to 2025. I have a suspicion this is going to play average in terms of scoring conditions. I just generally don't like that filter. I much prefer to use easy or difficult. So let's take a look at what we do know about Memorial Park. It's long. It's very long. So your top birdie or better players on long and very long courses: Jimmy Stanger, Scotty, Jake Knapp, Pearson Coody, Harry Hall, Danny Walker, Jesper Svensson, Alejandro Tosti, Keith Mitchell, and Dan Brown. Conversely, your top bogey avoiders on long courses. Look at that. Adrian Dumont Deschessart, all red in terms of scoring. So he's just been getting a bunch of pars on long courses, seemingly. is what this data is telling us. Pontus Nyholm, Haotong Lee, Kevin Roy, Scotty, Vince Whaley, Bryce Garnett, Pearson Coody, Chris Ventura, and Lee Hodges. Your top 10 bogey avoiders on long courses. Hey, good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Mentioning Mac Hughes. Absolutely, he has played exceptionally well here in the past 5 years or so. Hasn't been supposedly the greatest on birdies or better or bogey avoidance on long courses, but there's no denying that he has been very good around Houston. Gosh dang it. Now, I'm just telling you right now, Phil, I'm only going to be looking at 2024 and 2025. The reason being is that in 2022, 2021, and 2020, you can see it was played in November. It was played as part of the fall. And so the Bermuda was live. It just played completely different. I am only going the past 2 years, so be mindful of that when you see some of my, especially when you see like the course value come Wednesday night. But I am in agreement with you. Mac Hughes has exceptional course history here. Tagala and Nikolai too might go nuclear. Of those two, I'm much more keen on Nikolai than I am Tagala. But I like your thought process in the sense that there's a lot of miss room here. And Nikolai and Tagala can afford to miss here. And Nikolai's got plenty of distance. So I do like your line of thinking there, Phil. Tagala did not play well at Valspar. Now, that could just be a poor course fit. I do think Houston is a much better fit for Tagala, but I'm much more impressed with Nikolai, considering I didn't think the course fit was very good for him at the Players or at the Valspar, and he still makes the cut to decent finishes. I don't think they were exceptional by any means, but they were solid. Yeah, top 30 the Players, which was great. He fell apart seemingly on the... Oh, yeah. So Nikolai was playing great Thursday and Friday and really fell apart on the weekend. So he played pretty well at the Valspar, all things considered. Tagala played horrible and I had 40% of him. That'll hurt. My DFS wasn't great either, mostly because I was all in on Austin Smotherman and he performed terribly. But I did stay away from Hovland and Tagala, so it could have been a lot worse. But it's good to see you in chat, Phil. Very much appreciate. Hopefully you've had a good start to your week and you are getting ready for Houston. Only other thing we're going to cover in the rabbit hole before we move back to Microsoft Excel, we're going to look at some par 3s. Par 3s are going to be very important this week. Just like last week at the Valspar, there are 5 par 3s around Memorial Park, and they are pretty evenly distributed in terms of lengths. You've got 167, 155, 202, 216, 237. They mix and match with lengths when they move tees and pins and so forth. So good mix of par 3s here. Your top par 3 performers in the field this week at Houston for 2026 or in 2026: Stefan Jaeger, Nikolai Højgaard, you just mentioned, Ryan Fox, Adam Scott, Patrick Rogers, Max Grazerman, Pearson Coody, Patton Kizzire, Aaron Wise, Shane Lowry, Bo Hostler, Tony Finau, and Kevin Roy are your top 13 just due to ties. Going all in on Harry Hall. Harry Hall's been pretty good here as well. I do worry just a little bit about his lack of distance. He hits it far enough. He's also not been in the greatest form lately. Top 10 the API, sure. The Players was pretty bad. He's been okay around here, I believe. Yeah, he's been solid. Top 30, top 20. It still worries me that he is losing on approach. Because I don't think... I mean, he is a very, very good putter. Sorry, I got an itch on my nose. He's a very good putter. I don't think you can bank on him gaining 4.5 and 5 every single time he comes to Houston. So his irons are going to have to be a lot better. And they haven't been recently. Loses some at the Players. He was really bad early in the year. I want to like Harry Hall, but I've got some hesitation there, Phil. Much more keen on Nikolai of the 3 to 4 that you have said. Plus, Mac Hughes has just excellent course history. Echo says Kevin Yu. Normally, at a big ball striking course like this, I would tend to agree. But he's been really bad lately. And he's been bad here. Like, the Valspar top 30, fine. But he has to be gaining bunches with the ball striking. Because the putter, I mean, losing 9 at the Players in 2 rounds. In 2 rounds, he lost 9, not 4 rounds. I mean, losing 3.5, losing 2, losing 2 1/3. You know, he has to be exceptional ball striking to contend, and he just hasn't been. Echoes. And you look at, I color me surprised. He was actually pretty good here last year. I admit I was wrong. I did not think he was very good at Houston when he's played here, but played here once, top 20. This would give me a lot of pause. Considering the irons haven't come around yet. The off the tee hasn't been good. Like when he was doing well, granted this is the fall portion when the fields are a little bit weaker, but he was still gaining off the tee. You look at his RBC Canadian, gaining 6 off the tee. And he also gained 5 that week putting. Myrtle Beach, all-world ball striking. Look last year, he came to Houston. He was in great form with the irons. Great form with the irons. He's not that right now. So that gives me some pause. It gives me some pause. I like the thought process there, Echoes. You know, elite ball striking, but not feeling it. I'll do one more player since you put him in chat, and then I'm going to go to Microsoft Excel to finish off the show. Celinda, interesting, young player, 29, still hasn't really broken out yet on the PGA Tour. Making cuts at least. It's not the worst. Been hit and miss with the ball striking. I don't know if he's played Houston. Top 15 last year. This looks a little bit better than Kevin Yu, I'll say. Even though we didn't get the stats in Puerto Rico. He's at least making some cuts. He seems to be in at least a little bit better form with ball striking. But it's not something I'm in love with, Echoes. Gonna be honest. Yeah. All right. Good questions, though. Good thought process. Let's go to Microsoft Excel. Normally, we take a look at like some stats, how they've fared at Memorial Park first. I'm going to save that for the end because there's not a whole lot of research that I've been able to do. Again, with only 2 years that I'm comfortable looking at, like the winner matrix is very, very basic. Minwoo Lee did not play in 2024 and then wins. Jaeger won the inaugural spring Houston Open, so there's not a lot to look at here. Let's look at recent form of both of these guys. Minwoo Lee, he was not in great recent off the tee form, but you see at Waste Management he was really good. Genesis he was fine. Cognizant he was fine. He was good with the irons the last time out, but he wasn't necessarily in great iron form. Minwoo Lee was putting the ever-living daylights out, gaining 6.5 at the Players, 2 at API, 3.5 at Cognizant, 1.5 at the Genesis. Like he was putting the ever-living daylights out. But he has always been positive in distance. Sorry, I need to blank these out. because we didn't get the measurements for them. But he was always positive in distance. Look at Jaeger. Jaeger, always generally positive in distance. Jaeger was not a very good putter, and he wasn't in good putting form, but he was great off the tee and great recent form off the tee. That's why I think recent off the tee form is going to be pretty important this week. So only 2 years of data, didn't post anything to social media. You know, the winner matrix is very inconclusive with only 2 years. So I just wanted to lead with that. And now we'll finish the show off with some specific stats around Memorial Park. Again, only 2 years. So Scotty Scheffler's finished second and second. Pretty good. Pretty good. Minwoo Lee only played here once, but he did win. Toasty's been very good here with a third and a fifth. Jaeger's been very good in the 2 spring events here. Win in a top 11. Win in an 11th. Woodland's been good in 2 tries. Mackenzie Hughes been good in 2 tries. Finau in 2 tries. So, again, small sample size, but might give us an idea of some of the players who generally like playing around Memorial Park. So your top off the tee players, Finau's been good in both years. Wyndham Clark's been good in both years. Toasty, Kitayama a little bit less in terms of success, but he's been great off the tee here. Chris Goddard. Mackenzie Hughes has actually been really good off the tee. Normally he's doing it all in the short game, but you see Mackenzie Hughes, excellent all the way around here at Memorial Park. Probably a worthwhile placement wager. I don't think he can win this week. Famous last words. Now you should wager the farm on Mackenzie Hughes. Don't do that. I'm not telling you to do that. Just figure speech. But probably a good a placement wager. Taylor Pendrith has been good here. Scotty, of course. So there's your top off the tee players specifically. Just because you mentioned him right at the end there, Phil Pearson Coody. Doing okay. He's made the cut both years. Have been pretty average. Specifically at Memorial Park. There's your top off the tee players. Top approach players. Gerard's one time. Woodland. Scotty. Toasty. Jaeger. Griffin. Chandler Phillips. Davis Thompson's been hitting his irons well. Dunlap 1 for 2. Keith Mitchell 1 for 2. Pendrith again. Hughes a little bit lower here on the on the irons. There's your top iron players. Don't want to ignore the putting. Your top putters the past 2 years at Memorial Park. Minwoo gained 8.5. You can't expect that, but clearly was on fire last year. Harry Hall. There's your shout, Phil, from earlier in the show. Harry Hall's been putting great here, but he's been really bad with the irons. He has to really improve that for me to want to jump on board with Harry Hall. Scotty's actually putt amazingly well here. Jaeger's putt amazingly well here. Ramey, Taylor Pendrith, Wyndham Clark again. Toasty, not a very good putter, has putt very well here. Got her up. So, couple more here. Let's take a look at distance, and then we'll look at par threes. So let's take a look at distance. Rasmus, it's one time. Minwoo was very long last year, just hitting driver everywhere. Toasty, no surprise. Wyndham Clark, a little bit surprising. I knew he was long, but I didn't know if he'd be this high and second highest of the players that have played it both years. Jesper Svensson makes a lot of sense. Woodland, Jake Knapp, Potgeider, Matty Schmidt, Thorbjornsen, Nikolai, ADDC, Chris Goddard, Finau, Kevin Yu. To your point, echoes. Kevin Yu's doing Kevin Yu things, hitting his irons very well here. Been okay off the tee, just not putting. Kitayama, Mitchell. All right, last thing we'll take a look at is par threes. Let's see who's played the par threes the best around Memorial Park the past couple of years. Billy Horschel once. Matty Schmid, who's played pretty well recently. Maybe keep an eye on. There's Sahith Theegala, doing well in the par 3s, but giving it almost all the way on the par 4s. Gary Woodland. There's Scotty. Minwoo's. Isaiah Salinda did well in the par 3s last year. Yeager. Hughes. Harry Hall. Finau. I'm highlighting the guys that have played both years. Ramey. Dunlap, Day, Fox. Fishburne 0 for 2. Doing fairly well on the par 3s and horrible on the par 4s. So, Seamus Power's an alternate. That's why he's in orange. Unfortunately, I don't have Sam Ryder in here or Jackson Suber. I need to add those two players. But there's a look at some deep statistical data and a dive into it for Memorial Park. That's going to be it for the Data Dive show this evening. Thanks to Echoes and Phil for jumping into chat. Very, very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. I myself have been really poor in that regard the past 2 weeks. I'm looking to turn it around this week at Houston in time for the Masters. So thanks again for all the support. Much appreciated. For all the wagers you've made so far this week for the Houston Open, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the Houston Open, and until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.